It started with a quiet dig in a quiet town. June 2020, Rexburg, Idaho. FBI agents stepped into Chad Daybell's backyard with a search warrant and a sense that something wasn't right. They followed phone records, silence, and months of missing answers. Then, beneath the soil, they found them. J.J. Vallow, just 7 years old, buried near a tree. Tylee Ryan, his teenage sister, burned and hidden close by. 2 children who vanished without explanation. And their mother? Lori Vallow Daybell was in Hawaii. Newly married, smiling for photos. How does someone go from being a loving mother to the center of a case that would shock the country? And what happens when belief matters more than family? There was a time when Lori Vallow's life looked almost perfect, at least from the outside. In 2006, she married Charles Vallow, a successful businessman. Together, they were raising Lori's teenage daughter, Tylee Ryan. Then, in 2014, they adopted JJ, a bright little boy with autism. He was the grandson of Charles's sister, and he quickly became the heart of their home. People who knew them say Lori was a caring, hands-on mum. She seemed endlessly patient with JJ, who needed more attention than most. Tylee, sharp and strong-willed, often stepped in like a second parent. To anyone watching, it looked like a happy, loving family. But not everything shows up in pictures. And somewhere behind those smiles, something had already started to break. By 2017, something in Lori's world had shifted, but quietly. On the surface, life looked normal. But behind the scenes, she had become deeply drawn to the writings of Chad Daybell. Chad wasn't just a novelist. He claimed to receive visions from God. His books mixed religious themes with apocalyptic prophecy, spiritual rankings, and portals to other worlds. Most people saw it as fringe fiction. Lori saw it as truth. When they met in 2018, their connection was instant. Chad told her she was chosen, a divine being with a mission in the end times. He spoke of past lives, dark spirits, and people whose souls had been replaced. He called them zombies. And Lori believed him. Soon, her view of the world began to change. Friends, family, even her children. She no longer saw them for who they were, but for what she believed they'd become. This wasn't just belief anymore. It was a lens. One that blurred love, rewrote danger, and gave her a reason to walk away from everything she once protected. Charles Vallow saw it coming, and he was afraid. In early 2019, he went to the police, saying Lori had changed. She wasn't sleeping, spoke of visions, and believed the world was ending. She told him he was possessed, and that his time was running out. He filed for divorce and begged for help. He even tried to get her a mental health evaluation, but no one stopped what happened next. On July 11th, Charles went to Lori's house to pick up JJ. He never walked out. Her brother, Alex Cox, claimed Charles attacked him with a bat. Alex shot him twice in the chest. He called it self-defense. Lori supported his story. No arrests, no charges. That afternoon, Lori texted Charles's sons to say their father had died. No phone call, no explanation. Later that day, she took JJ out for Burger King. Charles Vallow, husband, father, was gone. Buried not just in the ground, but beneath a story few believed. Was it a tragedy, or the beginning of something far worse? After Charles's death, Lori moved quickly. She packed up and left Arizona, bringing JJ and Tylee to Rexburg, Idaho. Her brother Alex moved in just down the hall. Chad Daybell lived nearby. And then, just weeks later, the children were gone. On September 8th, 2019, Lori, the kids, and Alex took a trip to Yellowstone. A photo from that day, JJ smiling, Tylee standing beside him, would be the last time anyone saw her alive. The very next morning, Alex's phone pinged in Chad Daybell's backyard. He was there for over 2 hours. 2 weeks later, JJ disappeared too. A visitor at Lori's apartment said he saw Alex carry the boy inside late one night. By morning, JJ was gone. Lori told friends JJ had become a zombie. So had Tylee. The day after JJ vanished, Alex returned to Chad's backyard, this time for just 17 minutes. No missing persons report, no public concern, just silence. 1 month later, another death. Tammy Daybell, Chad's wife of nearly 30 years, died suddenly in her sleep. Chad said she'd been coughing, then collapsed. No autopsy was done. 2 weeks later, Lori and Chad got married on a beach in Hawaii. Matching outfits. No mention of the children. No sign of grief. Back in Idaho, the search for JJ and Tylee had begun. JJ's grandmother, Kay Woodcock, called the police. She hadn't seen her grandson in weeks. When officers showed up, Lori claimed JJ was with a friend in Arizona. But that friend later told investigators it wasn't true. None of it was. By late November, both children were officially missing. Lori and Chad left town again, smiling for photos while the headlines grew louder. 2 children gone, 3 spouses dead, 1 wedding in paradise. The lies were starting to fall apart. As questions piled up, Lori and Chad said nothing. They ignored court orders, avoided reporters, and stayed silent in Hawaii. But the investigation kept moving. Cell phone data from Lori's brother, Alex Cox, placed him in Chad Daybell's backyard on 2 key dates, right after Tylee disappeared, and again the day after JJ was last seen. On June 9th, 2020, police started digging. First, they found JJ, wrapped in plastic and duct tape, buried near a tree. Then, they found Tylee, burned, dismembered, and buried in a shallow grave by what Chad once called the pet cemetery. He had even texted his wife about shooting a raccoon there. But there was no raccoon, only Tylee. Lori was arrested in Hawaii. Chad followed soon after. The charges were staggering: murder, conspiracy, grand theft. But what shocked people most was the motive. In court, the story came out. Spiritual rankings, light versus dark spirits, and a belief system that justified death as salvation. Lori was initially ruled mentally unfit, but by 2023, she stood trial. She was found guilty on all counts. The judge called her choices the most evil and destructive path possible. She received life in prison without parole. Chad's trial followed in 2024. He was sentenced to death. Even after her conviction, Lori Vallow was back in court, this time in Arizona. She now faced charges for conspiring to kill her 4th husband, Charles Vallow, the same man who once tried to get her help. Prosecutors said she wanted his life insurance, that she plotted his death with her brother, Alex, and masked it in spiritual language. What made the trial more surreal? Lori chose to represent herself. No lawyer, no remorse. She called it a family tragedy. Prosecutors called it a calculated murder. Once again, a jury had to decide. Was she lost in belief or hiding behind it? It's easy to see this as a bizarre one-off. But Lori Vallow's case is a reminder of how dangerous belief can become when no one challenges it. This wasn't just about doomsday prophecies. It was about how fear can be reframed as faith, and how spiritual language can be used to justify control. Or worse. Lori didn't act alone. Chad encouraged it. Alex enforced it. And too many people looked the other way until it was too late. This case asks hard questions. When does belief cross a line? How do you protect people when the danger is someone they love? In the end, this wasn't just about what was buried. It was about what everyone missed along the way. So who was Lori Vallow really? Was she the warm, smiling mother who once tucked her children into bed? Or someone who traded flesh and blood lives for prophecy and convinced herself it was righteous? In the end, it wasn't just the bodies that were buried. It was the reason, compassion, reality.